there's a lot of papers that had been reporting on this, which is they couldn't make sense of this. Okay, there's a rental crisis, but there's more properties that have ever been available. It's like, well, both are actually exist in the same space. And
going once, going twice, sold. You're listening to the Property Pod.
All right, guys, welcome back to the Property Pod, your weekly engagement into real estate here in the Hobart Marketplace. I'm your host, Aaron Horn, and Pat is very impressed that I've been doing some vocal warm-ups before the show. Welcome back to the Property Pod, Pat and John.
It's actually more the point that I think you started and J-Mac wasn't ready because he was like,
He did.
shit, we're on.
still looking at the notes.
It's the media training, though. He turned literally into, I'm prepared, I'm good. I've read the notes. I'm good to go.
Yeah, shift gears.
It's just like deer in headlights for you, John.
Yeah. So sometimes you forget to put the clutch in.
Well, look, I'm glad you're here. There's a bit of a false start to get us here to the studio, but we've made it, and I'm ready to rock and roll. How are we feeling this wintry morning, guys?
Don't all jump in at once.
Yeah.
Look, it's been a bit of a quiet week, but, end of financial year.
I know, we're
is
just about
around
to-
the corner, so it normally quietens up a little bit as we get to that period of time.
So yeah, this is what I was going to say. It's probably generally like it's literally just a made up date of like we cross through the middle of the year and the financial year switches over. But it does change, like end of financial year sales, get all this stuff sorted.
Yeah, or EOFI is what I think is it.
Yeah, everything's acronised now. But
I just love that.
In real estate terms and stuff, it probably is easier to not have contracts crossing over this imaginary date line, or you kind of want to get all your things lined up in the start of...
There's definitely investors that will make the decision to hold off to the next financial year.
Yep.
There are some, 2 or 3 months earlier that will try to move a property before.
Okay, yeah. Can you explain kind of that lead-in period to that?
Yeah, so it's something to do with taxes, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, John, but there are different investors that will try to sell a property in a year or buy so many new ones per financial year.
And will have something to do with capital gains.
Yeah, and something to do with their own personal taxes and offsetting different bits and pieces. So some will say, rightio, this year, because I'm going to make X, I need to buy so many properties.
Yep.
And so you'll find sometimes you get a bit of a rush of an investor trying to get that extra property before end of financial year. But for us, because we do work, like we have such long settlement periods, that action normally happens in March, April, not June,
Yeah,
July.
so that's what I was going to say. You often have those phone calls, and I've listened in on phone calls prior to, those months where it's just like, oh, yep, look, we're just going to do an appraisal on this to work out this for tax purposes. It's obviously leading up to the financial year and trying to get your ducks in a row for that.
Yeah, so different things like that But yeah, for us, once we get to this month, it's definitely a little bit quieter because we do have that lull of investors that probably jump out of the marketplace.
Well, I guess there's a halt in decision making until everyone can understand what their tax return is going to look like on a smaller scale. But
I heard that
for anyone, I suppose, that is much more attuned to their financial position, that would have
none of us.
No, exactly. They'll have planned accordingly. And I guess another thing for winter settles in and everyone just sort of bunkers down a little bit more as well.
Yeah.
So
at least in Hobart.
So you've got no EOFI sales on any of your properties going this week, John?
Not specifically, no. We could probably change the headline, I suppose. And just
actually.
See where this runs.
10% off.
Actually.
This month only.
Yeah.
Look, it's not a silly idea. People jump on like Black Friday for like ridiculous deals and things like that. Could you just, as a marketing ploy, be like, look, I'm just going to throw one Hail Mary pass in a financial year sale.
Yeah. Even, I suppose, on our services, it's like 50% off all real estate. But it's so odd when you see those, I guess real estate has a very different connotation when it comes to discounting your services than almost any other industry, as far as I'm concerned, or any service industry sounds a bit strange. Now, when you'll hear a lawyer go 25% off our hourly rate, or real estate like 30% off. List your property now. Like no one wants. There's a very small population that would probably get really amped about that.
Oh, look, I'm sure there would be people out there that are chasing the cheapest deal and the best deal and being like, I don't care, I'm still getting it.
But now I just want to see in the real estate guide a JB Hi-Fi inspired ad with the big stars, 20% off this property, 5% off this property.
Or like the EB games and stuff, how like every week there's a new sale on, like, and they're just adorned with more sale.
Oh, so I've got to deck the front of the office out with bloody streamers and shit hanging from the roof.
Oh, we should get one of those.
Wacky waving, what was it? Wacky waving inflatable flailing arm tube man.
This is a perfect segue into one of the articles we're going to talk about today. So our property management team was saying it's a bit dead on inquiries.
Oh, mate.
And they both, two of them suggested the wacky, crazy guy outside the front of the house.
Actually, imagine one. I'm just picturing now that you've mentioned that. Imagine getting one made that you have at your open homes and stuff like that, but like adorned in like a 414 like coloured outfits.
Oh, no, like a suit and tie.
Yeah. And then he's waving like, come on in. Oh, my goodness.
Or we can have Aaron Murray just stand out the front doing it.
It could be our wacky waving inflatable flailing arm tube man. Well, Janae just sent through, I know it's not on our notes, but there was
It actually is.
Oh, it is it?
Yeah, it is, baby.
That's why we're moving to a J-Max, so go for it.
Segue. Okay, yeah, we're owners of that now, considering rent-free periods as incentives to jump in on that property
Yeah,
specifically.
so it's kind of not too far off what you're talking about with, we're taking
20% off.
20% off for this period.
Yeah.
So yeah, there are a few in the Hobart area that the Mercury Jared, friend of the pod, has put an article together saying, they're offering 2 weeks free rent to get tenants moved into the property.
Yeah, to make, like, there's a bit of stock around at the moment, not quite as many tenants. And so people are creating these deals, I guess, to convince tenants to choose their place over somebody else's.
So my very first thought, which isn't directly related to kind of the free side of it, is the mass media is basically just pumping up this rental crisis. All this information on the mainland is rental crisis, whereas we're just in a reverse here.
I don't think we're in a reverse. I think the way I look at it, and I've spoken to Joe about it a few times, our business development manager.
Yeah.
I think the media is spinning it slightly wrong. They're describing a rental crisis, but I think it's an affordability crisis.
Okay, yep.
Yeah.
So landlords are trying to get a higher price to cover the increase in mortgage rates, so that they don't default on the loan, but people can't afford to pay the rent that they need to be able to keep the investment property. So what I think we've really got is a heap of properties that landlords, and most landlords, as we've talked about in the past, are mum and dad investors, maybe only own one or two.
Yep.
And they're actually struggling to maintain the rental property because the cost that we're asking for these rental properties is higher than the average tenant can afford at the moment due to cost of living increases and
yes, it's
everything
almost
else that's
like
happening, like with inflation.
When a new subsidy comes in to pay for, say, we've got our daycare that we're trying to sort out at the moment. It's like, oh, you're going to get this new daycare bonus sort of thing. This is coming through. And then it's, just by the way, daycare's going up.
Yeah, so it's been swallowed up anyway.
It's been swallowed up anyway and not actually assisting in any way. So it's a similar thing where...
Yeah, so that's my take on it anyway, is I think that, yes, there is a rental crisis in some way where there are a lot of people that need housing, but they need housing they can afford, which is what in Hobart at the moment we don't have.
That's right.
And so I think there is a housing crisis, especially with Housing Tas and companies like Centacare that we work with, where people are reaching out to them looking for housing.
And they're on a wait list for donkeys.
Yeah, because they can't afford to take the private rentals at the moment because the cost of the private rentals is too high.
Yep.
And I don't think me personally, I don't think it's from landlords being greedy. I just think it's from the cost of owning the investment property, is that they are trying to maintain the property, I guess.
Well, a simple answer we looked at it was there are more properties becoming available, but just not in the affordability band because all the subsidies that social housing can contribute can only go up to a certain point. I remember when I was before I'd moved into my house, I'd kept the rent specifically at the subsidy for the family that was there, which was $320 a week.
Yep.
Good Samaritan.
So but of course, once I've moved in, well, it's gone. But that's the thing, is that will they, over and above that band, well, you're not going to find a 3-bedroom house in Glenorchy for $320 a week anymore.
Yeah, sure.
So the thing is that the two-speed of this, there's been a few times actually with the media training where
Here we go.
Here we go.
But there's a lot of papers that have been reporting on this, which is they couldn't make sense of this. Okay, there's a rental crisis, but there's more properties that have ever been available. It's like, well, both are actually exist in the same space, and it was exactly the same as it. And I asked Jo a few times the same, and she said, yeah, definitely affordability. But in the end, it just comes down to there are more properties becoming available, but not in the affordability band. So the people that have always been suffering are still suffering.
Yeah.
So nothing's really changed on that front.
So, like, our property management team are all relatively new within the space. They've sort of joined over the last 4 or 5 years, and obviously the market's been pretty good during that time. So a lot of them are experiencing this for the first time. And so when Jared put out that article saying free rent for 2 weeks. It was almost like a novel thing they hadn't seen before, but
It's existed before.
it's existed before. Abby and I were actually talking about it about a week ago and saying, I don't think we're far off having to suggest that to owners.
Yeah.
But it is an interesting thing because owners don't want to drop the rent, but they're happy to offer 2 weeks free. Well, that's effectively dropping the rent by $20 a week.
That's
pretty
right,
much.
yes.
Because if you take that over the course of the year,
Yeah, I guess it's that. It's not a sales ploy, but because my instant idea when I read the article was, yep, you get 2 weeks free because the landlords don't want to be dropping the prices. And I'm like, yeah, but if you were to negotiate a lower rent, then the 2 weeks free negates itself. So it kind of doesn't end up being free. It just, the money comes out in a different journey.
I guess the only thing I could think of, the advantage of the 2 weeks free, I've just moved myself, and there is a lot of moving costs involved from going to place.
Yep.
And so at least I guess if you have 2 weeks free rent, it allows you maybe for crossover a little bit easier. Maybe you can take that property a week earlier and start to move across a bit easier.
I did see an article of an agency offering moving assistance, as in kind of here's a way of trying to make that little process easier. It is expensive, so I don't know if they'd cut a deal with a moving agency or something, but I was like, oh, this is a good idea to save that kind of problem.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yes, I think property managers are definitely going to have to get creative over the next couple of months to find ways to rent properties. It will be interesting to see how that goes.
Well, especially if the owners are not in a position just to adjust the rent to meet the market where the good tenants are going to move sideways into it. Because I know a friend of mine was in Sydney. I can't remember which suburb it was, near the beach. But he was living in
Most of Sydney.
Yeah, but he was living in an apartment. I think he was paying about $700 a week, and over in that time, it adjusted, and then he was able to get a bigger apartment in the same suburb for like $580. Yeah. So he just broke lease and moved sideways.
Yep.
So they'd obviously adjusted to where good tenants were like, that's a better value proposition than where I was previously, because now they were paying over market. And I guess that's the sticky point as you described. If interest rates have gone up so considerably, some owners are just not in that position to be able to adjust the 10, 20% that perhaps they would probably otherwise have to. And what we find as the real estate agents is that we're getting a lot of aggressive phone calls from people that are in a desperate financial situation, but they'll mask it by just throwing out every other excuse under the sun, where behind the scenes all they're saying is, I'm really financially struggling right now, but I don't know how to get out of it.
Yeah.
You know? And whatever solution that we can provide for them doesn't provide a solution.
Well, that's it. You've got to think about it. Some of these mum and dad investors have got their own personal home, plus maybe one or two investments that, over the last couple of years with equity increases in property values, piece of cake, go buy a house.
Yeah.
This is awesome. And now it's got tough. All of a sudden, they're trying to cover 3 mortgages that are going up rapidly.
Yeah.
And tenants now breaking leases or moving out, renegotiating. It's definitely a different market to what it was.
Oh, absolutely. And look, I suppose in that sense too, that those that had been struggling are still struggling. So there's no winners in this scenario, well, there probably are, but not the people that we deal with on a daily basis that we want to help.
Yeah, it's pretty dire. The spirits were pretty high for a little bit there. We're talking free rent. Now I'm just like, I don't know where to go from here.
We've just
fallen off a cliff.
Yeah.
Well, talking of cliffs, I've got something to talk about that's cliff related.
Save this show. Come on.
I just wasn't sure if you guys were across this. I know like developments on Mount Wellington on Kunyani is always a sore topic. But have you guys seen this zipline idea?
No, but tell me more.
Tell you more? Have you seen this zipline idea?
Only what you just sent just a moment ago.
So I can't think of the guy's name. It's here, Shane Abel, the guy who basically put in the Tahoon Airwalk.
Oh, yeah.
He's put in a few of these zip lines in New South Wales, New Zealand, etc. So he's put a proposal's going through to the Hobart City Council for the largest zip line in the Southern Hemisphere to be on Mount Wellington. His claim is that it won't disrupt the look of the mountain. It's actually way better for the mountain than the
Cable car?
No, not cable car. Yes, better than the cable car. Better than mountain bike tracks and stuff that are already there. So it's a proposed zip line of 1.3 kilometres. It would take approximately 90 seconds to complete, and would be a massive tourist.
I can understand that because the zipline's just got towers segmented down the hill.
Yep.
And
so
disappears in between the tree
the
lines.
footprint of the tower would be quite small compared to a mountain bike trail, which is kilometres of disruptive earth that's getting done in every day. So I can see his argument on that.
Yes. So the plan, like the plans are there, and it's kind of argued that the zip line would have less impact and mitigate traffic all going to the run spot because he wants to have it meet at the Strickland Falls and take a minibus to the Springs. So I don't know. It's an interesting idea. I love kind of when developments come up in Tassie. The other
It'll
one
get squashed.
No, well, yeah, of course it'll get squashed. Like we've been guaranteed a footy team, and that looks like it's on its way to being squashed. Have you guys seen
I'd
this?
actually seen the graphic design of these towers that you're describing, and I think the Empire State Building was smaller than these towers.
Yeah, okay.
You know, like the way that they
they kind of
them on
spiral up in
a bit like the footy stadium.
Yes, so that's what I wanted to go to next. Have you seen the image of the footy stadium, which, as someone that works in Photoshop most days, there's this new feature, generative fill, where you kind of just select the area and type in like football stadium. And essentially that looks like what these architects' plans that
I did see that
someone has claimed. Oh, it'll fill up the whole skyline and take over all of the city. And I think I actually saw Jeremy Rockcliffe wrote like, whoever spent time in Microsoft Paint making this, like you're a real goose.
But the silly thing is, like, I'm happy to say I'm pro stadium. I'm all for it. But if you look at the photos that Rockfield has put up, his photo perspective is a lot further back, which makes the stadium look a lot smaller.
Yeah, yeah.
So every photo that the Tasmanian government has put out has been halfway in the River Derwent from a boat, or all the way back on the other side of Salamanca, which when you look at perspective of the photo makes the stadium look way smaller.
Yeah.
I would love to see a photo from the Tasmanian government taking in a similar position.
So actually basically take that
same shot. And then because I don't think there'd be a huge amount of difference between the two.
No, that thing's a monstrous big. Yeah. And think about when you're walking like along to Etihad Stadium or Marvel Stadium, whatever it's called now.
You would never
blend in. Like, but yes, I just thought it was funny, and knowing and playing in the Photoshop space, looking at them, it's like I know exactly how they've literally clicked three things and then it's gone viral.
Well, I think I read on one of the posts that someone had commented that the measurements they'd worked out for this picture had it at 48 metres high, which was higher than the MCG's highest points.
Oh, dead set. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Hey, we need 200,000 stadium.
It's only a 25,000 or 30,000 seat stadium, but apparently it's got higher walls than the MCG at 100,000 people. So.
One that I will say, like, have you guys been? You probably haven't. Have you been up to Townsville since they've got their new stadium?
I can't say it's been a place that I visit.
Whatever. I've got family in Townsville. Townsville's beautiful.
Have you just jumped on a plane?
You work with us every day.
I knew the answer before I asked it. I don't know why I asked it. Anywho, the stadium in Townsville has this amazing kind of, I know it's in North Queensland and the weather's really accommodating, but has this amazing, it's almost like a crustacean or a shell, the way that it's shaped, and it's quite open-aired. So as people are like walking towards it, you're almost being like invited into it. And it's the way it's shaped in the city, it just fits perfectly. It's like it's meant to be there. It's like a art installation. It'd be cool if the one that we were to build here, if the team was to go ahead, could be this. But it sounds like ultimately...
No, apparently we're getting a big square box.
Yeah.
That is how it's going to look.
Big silver thing that's just going to be ugly, which would actually go really well next to that tin can that's the Opera House thing that's there. That is just a bizarre...
I still remember when the insulation was just, it had cracked and it was, falling out the side.
All the inside.
Yeah.
Do you remember when it was first all shiny? And they had to like polish it back, the old
because it's too intense.
And the heat was increasing the surrounding buildings by ridiculous amounts.
Although it would be impressive, like to have the only football stadium that looked like a concrete water tank.
Yeah,
Oh, what a nickname!
Yeah.
Water tank.
Water tank.
Come and take on the Tassie Tigers or whatever they're called in the water tank.
So that's why it should be the Tassie Mariners in the water tank.
Yes.
There you go, marketing genius.
Here we are, we're solving the world's problems here today.
Look, if you are pro football team and you're listening to this on the day it comes out, there is a Tassie versus Queensland footy match on at North Hobart this weekend. So there's a big push for people who are pro the team to get along and show that we can get a big crowd to a state footy event. So, yeah, Tassie rep team, they'll be wearing the the Tassie Jumper. I think ladies' game starts just before lunch, 11:55, and men's game is after that. I'd say 2:00. So if you're out and about with the family and you are pro footy team, it'd be a good way to get there in droves and show them that we are behind it. I want the footy team. Can understand that people are claiming that their money could be spent on better things. The money's already been allocated. Let's just build it. Let's just build it. Let's get our team.
We're getting very political
If it
now.
doesn't happen now, it'll never happen.
This has been an interesting show. We've dived into the depths of the rental market, and now we've just aligned ourselves pro football.
Man, we're going everywhere. But look, it's our show. We can do whatever we bloody want.
I would still be 100% behind us being called the Turbo Chooks. And if that was then not called the tank, we could call it the barn and just do it after a giant big.
And look, to save money on construction, chicken wire is way cheaper.
Exactly.
For the side
just
walling.
a bunch of stilts, straight. Allow the wind to go through. Really alter the bouldering. It'd be fantastic. Yeah.
Oh, you gooses.
Turbo Chooks.
Turbo
I
Chooks.
just want to point out though, Turbo Chooks, they free range. They don't freaking live in a barn.
Yeah, I know.
You can't tame Tassie.
That's why we can't have walls at this stadium, but that's the walls make sense.
Oh, jeez.
Look, crew, that's the show for today. It is, as you say, it's been a roller coaster of highs, lows, cliff drives, stadium talk,
Zip lines,
this, that, and the other. Get out to the footy this weekend if you can. The other thing that is on day of release of this is the Winterfest out in Bridgewater. Crew at the Kudalana Collective put that on. It's a really good event. I'll head out there with the boys. So if you are out there, you do listen to this, come along and say g'day. Another fun community event.
Killer playground right next door to it too.
Absolute killer. Actually, Jack's probably old enough now to go on that spinny hamster wheel.
For the listeners out there that don't realise, Bridgewater has one of the best playgrounds after Kingston.
I'm
calling
He's
it.
claiming it.
It is a good playground.
I have wanted to do a blog piece on best playgrounds in and around our local area. I know we've already done one on like new ones. I'm just like, but like
the best
like
one.
ranking them and having like a kid or someone being like, yep, sweet, it's got this many swings, it's got this many activities, a zip line.
Well, I know when I was growing up, it was the one at West Hobart, which was the old train. That was
the train station was
my
the
number
playground
one.
of choice.
Let it be known the train station playground is still a ripper.
Yeah.
Yep.
It just doesn't really have the train anymore. It's just a little
It's just
tiny.
it's the plank. Yeah.
No, it's still a train.
Yeah,
It's still a
it's
train.
not as good.
It's not as good, but there is an awesome slide, like an absolute monster slide. So
And we were wrapping up. So let's just get back to what we were doing.
next week on the Property Pod, best parks in and around Hobart.
As voted by the kids.
Or John, Pat and Aaron.
Yeah. Who are big kids at heart.
Yeah.
All right,
Look
that's
at
the
this
Property
survey.
Pod.
See you guys.
See you guys. Bye.
Okay.
You have been listening to The Property Pod, recorded and edited by 414 Media House in conjunction with 414 Property Code.
This podcast is general information only, and the thoughts and views expressed is the opinion of our panel, and listeners should always seek then use their own investigation into any topic we discuss to ensure they fully understand their own situation.
It does not constitute and should not be relied on as purchasing, selling, financial or investment advice or recommendations, express or implied, and it should not be used as an invitation to take up any agent or investment services. No investment decision or activity should be undertaken on the basis of this information without first seeking qualified and professional advice.